Good day, good talks. My name is Carden Madzokere. I'm the author and publisher of the Distinction Bound Student Textbooks, and welcome to Possible Essay number 2 for paper 1. Okay, so it says here discuss in detail the new economic paradigm or explain smoothing of business cycles. Okay, now this one here is one of the essays that I find learners to be struggling with, of which I also don't understand why they struggle with it. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about it and try to explain, and maybe that's going to clarify where learners, struggle. Now, so with this one, basically what we're saying here is let's try to stimulate economic activity. The goal is to increase aggregate income. However, if government just focuses on one side, because by one side I mean to stimulate aggregate income, government can focus on the consumers. Basically, I'm trying to say the demand side, or government can concentrate on the producers. Basically, that's the supply side. So businesses that are manufacturing goods, if government does things that would stimulate the production of goods and services through whatever way it is that we are going to discuss just now, that is going to increase aggregate income. So the problem that comes with demand side policies is that they will cause inflation. So what government then can do when it comes to the new economic paradigm is that they will couple demand and supply side policies. And so the demand side policy would cause an upward pressure for prices, meaning it's going to cause inflation. But now that inflation can be cancelled out by a supply side policy, because basically what we're saying is if we do whatever it is that we can do that can stimulate aggregate demand, well, it's going to, if you have a demand curve and a supply curve and have equilibrium somewhere, if okay, let me just show you what I'm explaining. This is what I'm explaining. The goal is to increase aggregate income. So the problem with that is, yes, government can do something that would increase or stimulate aggregate demand. By the way, this is suggestions by John Maynard Keynes, when when he was introducing, or should I say, according to his philosophy or his school of thought, he suggests that since markets are inherently unstable, government must actually come and bring about stability in the economy, and that will smooth out cycles. So if government does whatever it is that they could do, we'll explore options like what could government possibly do to stimulate demand. Look what happens here. Price would increase. So what this can be done is it can then be no. This aggregate supply. No, I made a mistake here because this is the same graph. Oh, I'm noticing now. This is the same graph, man. Because the one I was supposed to draw here, there's a thing missing, which is the supply curve. So if I was to draw a supply curve here, you would see that income won't be even Y1, it will be Y2 somewhere here. So if I put a supply curve here, I think you see where I'm moving, you'll see that nothing happens to price. So demand would go up, but if supply goes up as well, like if we implement two policies at once, that would stimulate both demand and supply side, price would remain the same, but the outcome would be, very, very much favorable, which is aggregate income would increase dramatically. So I just made a mistake here and put the same graph twice. I hope my learners will be able to see that it was a mistake. Okay. Right, so coming back now to this, let's have a look. So, demand side policy aims to increase aggregate demand, like I've already said. That's the aim. So, if aggregate demand increases, then we're going to have this happening. Like, Y will increase this aggregate income. So, what makes it go up basically is because more people are coming to buy goods and services basically, but we are going to explore what could cause that. So this needs to be done during a recession or a period below a trend growth. So all this, well, how is it done? Okay, so you also have to then talk about how it's done. So we have the monetary policy, which is executed by the South African Reserve Bank, or the MPC of the Reserve Bank, that is the Monetary Policy Committee. So that policy can either be expansionary or it can be restrictive. But the other term that you would find maybe in the exam guideline is not restrictive but contractionary. So we are saying the same thing there, but in some, you will see in the exam guidelines it says contractionary, so take note. So this policy is traditionally used to try and combat unemployment in a recession by lowering interest rates. So lowering interest rates would actually, make credit cheaper, which would entice businesses into expanding and increasing money supply. So basically, because now if I talk about businesses, it now sounds like it's a supply side in this case. But the point is, if interest rates are low, people, like households in general, would want to buy things on credit because it's cheaper for them to pay back whatever it is that they are borrowing. Okay, so it is a demand side because it's basically stimulates demand. Now, a restrictive one does the opposite. So it does make sense to be restrictive during an upswing and expansionary during a downswing, basically. Right, then we also have the fiscal policy, which has two instruments, tax and government spending. Now, this is executed by the finance minister or national treasury. Okay, so during an upswing, the finance minister can use restrictive fiscal policy, and government does this by increasing tax and decreasing expenditure, so as to curb inflation. Then during a downswing, government does the opposite, which is become expansionary with their fiscal policy, and it involves the opposite of what I just said with regards to a contractionary fiscal policy. Now, I explained these graphs. So now on the other side, these policies now would encourage businesses to do business because they simply make it easy for businesses to supply. So we call them supply side policies. So a supply side policy includes the following. Number one, so these three headings, you may have to make sure that you have them the way you see them, like this. Okay, so make sure you have these three. So we have number one, increasing the efficiency of markets to make them more competitive. So that is a supply side policy. Number one, this can be done through deregulation. Now, deregulation is the removal of government intervention. So when there is deregulation, there's going to basically be, it's going to make it easy for businesses to emerge, because whatever it is that could have hindered businesses from emerging has been removed. So basically, government is making it extremely easy for businesses to come about. So maybe the registration process, maybe the acquisition of licenses for you to be able to trade in certain industries. So just making it super, super easy is a supply side policy. So what it does then is, if it has become easy, more businesses would come up and supply. So supply increases. So that's why we call it a supply side policy. Then we have competition. Well, government came up with the Competition Act, and three bodies were enacted: the Competition Commission, Appeal Court, and Tribunal. So these three bodies were enacted to ensure that there is free and fair competition. Then the last one would be privatization. This helps increase competition. So privatization is basically the opposite of nationalization. So privatization is to change state-owned entities into private entities. Okay, the next one would be decrease the production costs. Now, this can be done through subsidies. So imagine you are making whatever it is that you're making, and what's actually hindering your production is probably the fact that maybe the cost of production is high. So if government subsidizes, that is going to make it possible for you to manufacture more of whatever it is that you're making. So subsidies would clearly increase production. The next one is decreasing administrative costs. Yes, unnecessary costs. Maybe one could be the registration process for you to be able to supply this and that. So all those administrative costs, if they can be decreased, that can actually increase whatever it is that we are producing. The last subheading on supply side is decreased tax rates. Oh, increasing the efficiency of inputs. This can be done through decreasing tax rates, encouraging firms to use modern technology, improving the quality of human resource through Skills Development Act, and then provide free advisory services. Okay, so this is it with regards to the supply side policies. Then now, what you need to also be able to do is to discuss the Phillips curve. And this is useful because I remember how I started. When I started, I was talking about the mere fact that a demand side policy would cause inflation. Okay, right. So you must be able to also talk about inflation, right? If you check also with regards to this, what do you call it? This essay type question, you'll see that they want you to be able to talk about inflation and then also unemployment. But then these two can be put together on the Phillips curve. So the Phillips curve basically is a trade-off between two, that to such an extent that if you take up one, you are hurting the other. Okay, here's an example. If we look here, we have let's say good, bad. An inflation rate of 8%, is it good or bad? Okay, I cannot hear your answers, but definitely 8% is bad, especially here in South Africa, where we target it between 3 and 6%. Okay, let's go to unemployment. Is unemployment at 20% good or bad? Well, based on what I'm looking at here, well, in South Africa, this would be very good because currently we're at 32%. So if it was 20, that would be good news. But let's compare 20 and 5. Obviously, 5 would be better. But here's something that we would see here. If unemployment would be as low as 5%, what would be the inflation rate? According to this Phillips curve that I have here, you see that at 5%, it will be maybe 8%. Okay, so a low unemployment rate of 5% would correspond with a high inflation rate of 8%. So when government tries to curb this one, as they go down in terms of inflation, you might see that this would be hurt, unemployment. It would then begin to increase. So let's look at 2%. 2% inflation is extremely good. But what does it correspond with? 20% or 18%, somewhere there, unemployment. So do you see that there is this trade-off? So policymakers find it difficult. So basically, you must be able to explain this concept. You can pause, read this if you don't understand the way I explained, but basically, I'm just talking about what you see there. Okay, so basically, that would have brought you to the end of this particular essay. So ask questions where you don't understand. But I'm now preparing for the next essay, which is an easy one. Discuss in detail features underpinning forecasting. Well, I'll see you in that video. Thank you. God bless.